Now, there's a number of countries around the world suffering from multiple infectious disease outbreaks in 2019. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is one key example. But another good example, well, not so good for them, is Pakistan. And a lot of it surrounds Karachi, but in Pakistan in general, are dealing with a number of infectious disease outbreaks. So let's take a look at what's happening in Pakistan concerning some of these outbreaks. And let's start with dengue fever. And here's a report from a news source there that 50,000 tested positive for dengue across Pakistan, 250 dead. Right? So the number of dengue patients across Pakistan crossed 50,000 on Saturday, as health officials struggle to cope with the deadly epidemic on a mass scale. 250 people have already died in different parts of the country. The twin cities of Rawalpindi and Islamabad are the worst hit areas concerning dengue. And there's also quite a bit of dengue going on in Karachi. Health officials estimate that at least 25,000 people in the twin cities have tested positive. In the two big hospitals of Islamabad alone, some 8,000 dengue cases have been identified. So dengue is one of the many problems going on right now in Pakistan. Let's take a look at something I looked at in a recent video, but I can't do Pakistan without touching on this. So I'm going to just briefly go over it, is the outbreak of extensively drug-resistant typhoid fever that's going on in Karachi. And I talked about this in a recent travel video. And as you can see, let me expand this a little bit. Just in Sindh province since 2016, there's been 10,365 cases, primarily about 2/3 from Karachi, about 1/3 from Hyderabad. And extensively drug-resistant typhoid fever essentially means that it's Salmonella Typhi that's acquired a plasmid resistance to multiple antibiotics, many of the first-line antibiotics that are unable to be used. It does remain sensitive to certain antibiotics like azithromycin and some of the carbapenems, but for the most part, most of your antibiotics are resistant to this. And one of the other things that we're seeing with this particular outbreak is that due to travel, it's spreading outside of Pakistan. We've seen cases in the United States, in Australia, in Canada. And I reported just the other day of Ireland has seen 23 cases of typhoid this year, which is much higher than a typical year. And at least half of those are from travelers from Pakistan. And there's a few XDR typhoid cases in the mix. Let's move on to the next thing, and that's Naegleria fowleri, right? The brain-eating amoeba. We see cases every year in Karachi. And Pakistan is one of those countries that report a lot of these cases on an annual basis relative of, to the organism. But so far this year, Karachi has seen 15 cases. Of course, all of them were fatal, of the brain-eating amoeba. And the most recent case being a 19-year-old man from Karachi. So 15 cases this year, all fatal. Next thing is malaria. And in Sindh province alone, which is where Karachi is located, there's been over 52,000 malaria cases since the beginning of the year through July. So that number is probably significantly higher. Now it's September. So, yeah, the report states that their cases have been reported from Thada, Sujawal, Larkana, a whole bunch of other areas of the Karachi area. So, a lot of malaria going on in Karachi. Something I've talked about on this page before is polio. Of course, Pakistan is one of the 3 wild polio endemic countries on the planet, in addition to Afghanistan and Nigeria. But this year, Pakistan's seen a significant increase in wild polio cases. And we can see that so far this year globally, there's been 88 wild polio cases. And right here, we can see that 72 have been from Pakistan. To put that in perspective, In all of 2018, there was 12 in Pakistan. So this is the most cases in a long time. Even last year, I think there was only, 33 total cases in all of globally between Afghanistan and Pakistan. So, yeah, so polio is a problem this year more than normal. The dreams and wishes of eradicating polio have taken a step backwards this year, in large part because of Pakistan. Next thing is a story that I covered some months ago and never really followed up on it, but they were reporting that there was like these 500 children that got HIV in one of the cities. A city called Larkana, Pakistan. And this was back in the spring. And they tested hundreds of children in this area that were HIV positive. And it kind of went off the radar. But in this report from Goats and Soda, it says the total number of newly diagnosed HIV cases in Larkana since April, 735 children, 159 adults. And these results were released on July 2nd. So hundreds of HIV cases, still relatively undetermined how this happened. So let's see if I can find anything they have to say concerning that. They say mother-to-child transmission is not likely a leading cause. The possibility of transmission from contaminated needles is a possibility. There are many cases where the child had repeated injections for a variety of reasons. They're also saying we are finding quite a few hepatitis B co-infections among children identified as HIV positive. Infections like hepatitis B and C are more likely than HIV to spread through contaminated needles. Anyway, in the meantime, it says the World Health Organization has declared this outbreak a grade 2 emergency. And the government has approved a fund of $6.3 million to address all the aspects of the outbreak, from testing to treatment to educating the community about HIV by trained counselors, curriculum, and more. So, yeah, that's a big issue that we're not hearing a lot about. And this is from August 30th from Goats and Soda. So I appreciate that they have been keeping up on it better than many of us, me included. There's also other things that are just really bad in Karachi. And there's this report that says, in a horrible picture, a plague of flies descends on Karachi. They're hounding people. It says, first came the floods as weeks of monsoon rains deluged neighborhoods across Karachi, sending sewage and trash throughout Pakistan's largest city. Then came the long power outages, in some cases for 60 hours and counting. And then it got worse. Karachi is now plagued by a swarm of flies. The bugs seem to be everywhere in every neighborhood, bazaar and shop, sparing no one. They're a bullying force on sidewalks, flying in and out of stores and cars and homes, settling onto every available surface, from vegetables to people. It says flies and flooding can often go together, and Karachi is no stranger to either. This is one of Karachi's largest hospitals. They've seen the worst infestation of flies ever. There are huge swarms of flies and mosquitoes. It's not just affecting the life of the common man. They're so scary, they're hounding people. You can't walk straight on the road. There's so many flies everywhere. So we got that going on. And pretty much a related story, and the last one I'm going to go over, is by this writer in Dawn. Dawn is a very popular news source in Pakistan. Her name is Rafia Zakaria, and she entitles it The Filth Inside. And she says, it's been a summer of filth and infestation. The rubbish was always there, but the usual piles became mountainous. The fetid pools turned into little ecosystems for enterprising insects. The junk thrown in the lanes continued to encroach. Then came the rains, and all the filth that was in the roads was doused, its volume increasing. Its new liquefied state enabled it to flow farther and farther. Filth flowed into the homes and huts and encampments and the shanties and into the mouths and bellies of children. So in this piece, basically she's talking about, again, is the garbage, the sewage, the flies, what's affecting, the health of adults and children throughout Karachi. And she says it's not over yet. The city continues to unravel. Some figures have been released by an international organization whose task it is to release data about habitability of the world's largest cities. A sum of 140 cities were considered along various metrics and then ranked. As if in some agreement with Karachi's inhabitants, the purveyors of the survey ranked the city near last in terms of livability. The 3 cities that ranked worst were Damascus, which is a war zone, Lagos, Nigeria, and Dhaka, Bangladesh. And she writes, if the war on Syria abates and the garment boom in Bangladesh endures and Lagos is able to dig itself out of its own mess, there is a chance that Karachi may fall to the very last place on this ranking. And there is nothing, it seems, keeping it from accomplishing this dubious decline. So, yeah, just a lot of bad things going on in Karachi. And, of course, all this filth, all these flies, insects, mosquitoes. It's just this massive cesspool of disease that's going to pop up in this country, in this city. So we'll be keeping a closer eye on Pakistan and Karachi in particular. And if you got any comments, go ahead and leave it below. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your friends, comment, and I'll see you next time.